Hello, hello, hello. Neil Sheth here, and welcome to How Do You Make Money, where I interview entrepreneurs and break down how they make money by breaking down their product, marketing, and sales strategy. And today we're going to be talking to a good friend of mine, Lara Smedley, who has over a decade of sports marketing experience and began Smedley Events by creating memorable experiences for event and attendees while simultaneously meeting the strategic goals of corporations, brands, and non-profits. Now, before we start, in the background, I'm going to be putting together a diagram that basically summarizes how Lara makes money today. And I'll share this with you all as well as Lara towards the end of the interview. So Lara, welcome. Thanks for joining me.
I'm glad that you're making a diagram to share with me about how I make money, because I feel like that would be useful in my business. So thank you for doing the hard work for me.
No worries, no worries. I should probably charge next time, shouldn't I? That's a good idea. So, all right, let's get into this. How did you end up doing what you're doing today? Give everyone a bit of background story.
Yeah, so the brief background is started off working in sports, worked for professional and collegiate sports organizations for about 15 years in a variety of roles, from media and PR to marketing and sales to community relations and event production. So in 2018, I decided to take a step away from the safety and comfort of working for others, which includes consistent paychecks and health insurance and lots of wonderful benefits you don't think about in life until you remove yourself from those environments. And went out on my own and started a event production, experiential marketing, and fundraising agency. And like you mentioned, primarily serve kind of the corporate brand market as well as the nonprofit and community development areas as well.
Interesting. Okay, so before we get into the nitty-gritty of all the businesses, I know you've done some really interesting things that I'd love everyone to find out about. Give us a sense of your business. Are we 5-figure business per annum, 6 figures, 7 figures? Just give us a sense. Share as much or as little as you please.
Yeah, so it's been super interesting. So started in 2018. I would say we were definitely, I bootstrapped everything. So didn't bring on any investors or outside funding. Was really starting to build up in 2019. And then as we all experienced, March 2020 happened, right? So that is a pandemic that specifically in my industry was fairly devastating in the event, live event space. I was lucky to make a couple different pivots that really became beneficial for myself and my business, that carried us through the pandemic, and then kind of led us to where we are today. So to answer your question more specifically, we are in the realm of kind of low 6 figures in terms of our revenue. And again, a lot of that has to do with the pandemic and kind of the business changes that we had to make in 2020.
Cool. So before we talk about the pivot, let's just talk about Smedley Events. You're an events producer. You work with corporates. Give us a sense of what type of events do you put on? And then for those like me, more interestingly, tell me about the numbers. How much do you charge per event? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so I'm going to be, those are really hard questions to answer. So I'm going to answer the easy one, which is the first one of what we do. So a lot of what we do tends to fall into the meetings and conference space. So we're helping organizations, whether that's an association or a corporation, plan and develop their conferences and meetings. Pre-pandemic, that was all in-person events. So traditionally, that looks like, between 1 to 3 day conferences that have attendees ranging from as small as 50 all the way up to maybe 500 attendees. We also, again, work in the space of fundraising. So that's a lot of nonprofit work. So if you think about galas and golf tournaments and other fundraising events that are going to help drive revenue for nonprofits so they can continue to do the community work that they do. And again, those will range from smaller events that are, low 100s to larger events that are coming into the thousands. We still do work in the sports industry. So a lot of that is fairly niche. So we produce different sporting events. So a good way to explain that in layman's terms is when you go to a soccer game, I'll use soccer or football as an example for you. And all of the things that you see on the video walls or any promotions that are happening in stadium, that is something that we handle, right? So that generally, can range in attendance from, 30,000 to 60,000 to 100,000 fans for those events. In terms of how we charge, everything is different because the needs of our clients are different. So I wish in a perfect world where you have products and you can say, this is exactly what you're getting and this is what I can charge. I wish that I can live in that space, but unfortunately every single event and their needs are different. So we have some events where we just come in and we're purely executing what their event is so that they can focus on different aspects, whether it's, engaging with attendees or stakeholders or, ownership group. So we're focusing on actually making things happen, then they're focusing on their customers and clients. Or there's events where we do everything. So we plan the event, we do all of the marketing, we handle all of the social media, we might build out a website for them. So those are a lot bigger in terms of our packaging. We have very few clients that we do billable hours for. So if there's folks that are listening that are thinking about going into the event business, I would deter you from thinking about billable hours like other agencies do. It's just a different, monster that, we live in. So we do everything basically on a retainer. So our retainers, based on our clients and their needs, our retainers can be, in the low thousands, up to, $10,000, $20,000, again, based on what the scale and size of their events are.
So just to help me understand this a bit, when you say, and we're just typing some of this down. So when you say you're avoiding billable hours and you're on monthly retainers, so what does that actually mean? Does that mean, as an example, company A has a retainer with you every month, they're paying you X amount every month, even though you're not necessarily holding an event every month, but that retainer goes towards the yearly event or it goes towards the 6 monthly event? Am I thinking about it in the right way, or have I just missed the mark?
Yes, you are. I would say not all of our clients are on a monthly retainer. So it could be, let's say you have, we're going to work with your, organization X, and they have 3 conferences a year. So we'll create a package for them that's based off of those 3 conferences in 1 year. And then from a billing standpoint, we might bill them monthly, we might bill them quarterly. But that is just a better streamlined process for us versus, putting some admin fees against tracking hours.
That's interesting. So that kind of, because I was thinking about that before we got on the Zoom, is how do you ensure your revenue doesn't just constantly do that? And
that way.
Yeah, and that's
how we do it.
But I'm guessing someone would only come onto a retainer with you when they've worked with you in the past, right? Where they've gone, yes, I enjoy this experience. So is that a wrong assumption, or do they just jump into a retainer?
I would say that's a wrong assumption. We have lots of conversations. I would say our onboarding process is probably more in depth than maybe some industries. Typically, we'll have 2 or 3 different meetings prior to signing a client. One of them typically will go into some basic strategy of what we're going to be doing with them, not in detail, so that they can just take it and execute it themselves. But really, I think your point is we have to build trust, and we have to build, that experience, so they understand we know what we're doing, right? So I would say 90% of what we do is referral based. So people are coming to us because somebody else said that they enjoyed working with us, or what we delivered was above expectation. So we don't run into too many scenarios where people are wanting to try us out, right? Like that's the worst thing that you can hear from a potential client when they're like, well, we just want to try this out. I'm like, you can try it out. I mean, in your world of SEO, like, you can't deliver, there's no golden ticket, right? Do this one thing and you're magically going to double your revenue or double your fundraising. It's a process, and we have to be a team, and we have to work on it together to be able to get to whatever your end goal is.
So let's talk about that for a second, just around the team. So you've got like these retainers, you know what clients are coming up, what projects are coming up. You have an idea today what your pipeline is and what your revenue is going to be for the year. You obviously want to build the team, but it sounds like if you've got retainers, you've got good clients, it sounds like your staff can be very flexible, so you don't need the large overheads. Is that how you operate the business, or
Yes.
do you have full-time people?
No. So I operated as a one-man show for the first 2 years, basically. Started bringing on contractors for specific projects where I just knew I couldn't manage the workload. That has transitioned now into bringing on part-time staff. So I do have part-time staff that work on all of my projects. I still have a couple of contractors that will work on specific projects based on kind of their skill set. Another way that I function in my business, which is maybe unique, I have what we call power partners. So there's individuals that I work with that are specific to a industry or skill set. So PR, for example, there's a wonderful woman that I work with in the PR world. So we have a couple of clients together. So she manages the PR side. I manage the event production and logistics side. And then the same thing is for some graphic designers as well. So graphic designers will work on projects. They'll be contracted directly with the client. So it's not me having to take on the graphic designer as an expense. That's the client managing that and paying them directly. But then we come in and work as this cohesive team. So then it kind of takes some, again, administrative load off of me from just a management side and the financial side.
Super cool. And I'm guessing having power partners is a great way to grow the business as well, where they refer you and you refer them.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. We've all done it for each other multiple times.
Awesome. I've got that down. So, okay. So you talked about last year, March 2020 will forever be in our minds not in the best way, but
not all in bad ways. There's some silver linings.
True. And actually there is a silver lining we're working on right now, which hopefully we'll turn around and say this was because of that. So with the pandemic, you being in the events business, events basically being non-existent, tell us a bit about the pivot that you made and what that looked like.
Yeah, so I had, I'll give a little bit just to build the energy and excitement of this story. I had an event, it was a 500-person luncheon. I live in Colorado in the States, and 500-person luncheon where the governor and the Secretary of State, all the important people in the state were supposed to be there for this luncheon. and it was scheduled for March 15th. And in Colorado, that was the day that the governor shut down the entire state. And we basically that was when the pandemic started for Colorado. So I had this shock to the system pretty quickly of, this is real. Like, this is going to severely impact my business and the industry that I work in as a whole. A couple of weeks later, after, wallowing in my depression of having all of my clients cancel or postpone their events, started to see what was happening in Europe and Asia as they were bringing back sports. So there's a German soccer team that started selling these cardboard cutouts. So basically fans would be able to go online, they could upload a picture of themselves, and then it would be placed in the stadium while the soccer team was returning to play, or the football team was returning to play, without any fans present. So obviously that was happening in Europe and Asia. It hadn't happened in the US yet. So decided that I was going to figure out how to do that first. So got with a friend of mine who stood up a very basic website that allowed fans to upload a photo and submit payment in basically the same order process. And then we would take those images that they submitted, we would process them, so make sure that they were ready and good enough quality to be printed on a 24-inch by 18-inch cardboard cutout. We would then send those files to a printer, and then they would be delivered to the universities or the teams that we were working with. Mm-hmm. So we stood that project up in less than 2 months. Mm-hmm. And we were able to secure, over the course of this last year, we worked with over 25 teams and organizations so that they could deploy a fan cutout program. Wow. The unique part of that piece was we were basically creating an asset that then would go into an organization's venue or stadium, right? So we didn't own the venue or stadium. That was the first problem. So we had to develop these partnerships really quickly so that our asset that we had created could actually be executed. And part of that development was creating the financial model for the My Fan Seats, which was the company that we made, where we were actually generating revenue for these teams or organizations. So we got a cut of what the cutout was sold for, but a majority of the revenue went back to the teams.
Interesting. That's so interesting. So you're selling the ability to have a cutout of yourself or a friend or family in the stadium, and you had to onboard the actual venue, the team per se, who would then take the cutout and then physically put it in their stadium. And in order to incentivize them to do that, they need to obviously get a lion's share of the revenue, so that they are then motivated to go out to their email list, to their subscribers, to their followers, and say, hey, do you want to appear on TV? Or do you want an image of yourself in one of these seats? Go over here. So I'm guessing you had like an affiliate link or a special landing page for that team.
Yeah, so once we had our prototype, for the lack of a better word, up and running, the way we built it, which again, if I could go back, and had more time, I would, make adjustments to better fit what we then learned were our needs of our clients. But we built a site, and then we built the ability to build customized pages for each team or organization. So we would build a page, it would have a image that the school would provide us, and it would use their kind of branding colors on that page. They would be able to set whatever type of cutout or amount of the cutout. So most teams and organizations had multiple price points. So if you wanted to sit courtside, your cutout was $200 versus sitting somewhere else in the arena, your cutout would be $50. So they set all of those parameters. And then we would build that site for them and then give them the link, and then they would do all of the marketing themselves. So we weren't doing any marketing, we were just doing fulfillment.
Got it. Okay, so that answers my marketing question. So was that profitable?
Yes. So that saved us from experiencing the havoc of the pandemic. I would say we generated, I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but we generated over $300,000 in revenue in probably a 6-month time frame. Because also think about what this project is, right? Like the sole purpose is that we're in a position where fans cannot be present at the game. That we went into this understanding that that was not the future of sports, right? This was just a momentary problem. So speed was our #1 driving factor. We had to be fast, we had to be efficient, and we had to deliver a solution. Again, there's things that I would change if I could go back, but the good part about everything now is the live industry has come back. Fans are returning to sporting events. I haven't looked on the update, but the Olympics are happening. So those things are great. So we knew we weren't creating something that was going to be long-term. We just were kind of going to go in, fill a need, fill a hole, and then exit that particular project.
Yeah, it's finding a problem that you need to fill right now. So 300,000 was the revenue overall in 6 months, and you mentioned a large portion of the revenue goes to the actual score, the venue, the team, and then you would take a cut. So your cut was from that 300,000, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool. And then what about you talked about the marketing to actual customers was reliant on the team itself or the school itself, which makes total sense. But how did you originally get the school on board? What did you do to do that?
I'm really good at cold emails.
Really? Okay.
So in the States, at least, there's an organization called the NCAA. They have a full list of all of their university partners on their website. So went to the website, pulled the list. Most universities in the States have contact information for department heads. So marketing departments, fan engagement departments were our targets. So we pulled lists really quickly, went out with a really appealing email with basically the offer was, we understand the environment, we are all in, there's no fans, we've lost the ability to generate revenue. We have a solution for you. You can have a fan cutout program, we will do all the work, and you will make a majority of the revenue.
Nice.
That's pretty appealing. You would say yes, right?
I would say yes the moment I read that email. I wouldn't even think twice. I'll just say, get me on this. So what would the process look like? It would be a cold email and then a call.
Yeah, so cold email, I would say our response rate was pretty decent. I mean, we probably emailed over 1,000 teams and organizations, and I'd say we had a 15 or 20% response rate of that 1,000, which was about probably what I could handle at the time myself. So I would not complain about that. And I would say our close rate on that 15 or 20% was 50 to 75% close rate. A lot of it is there wasn't a ton of solutions out there, right? Nobody had to create cutouts previously. Yeah. There was a couple of competitors that popped up. So there was a handful of us.
I'm just gonna pause.
Yep.
All right, guys, so I had to pause that for a sec as my wife popped her head in, and then she needed to go get some books for my little one. So we are now back on to the fan cutout program, and wife will not interrupt again. So anyway, so this was really interesting. So you got a cold email, 15 to 20% response rate. So you send 1,000 emails, get 15 to 20% people coming back saying, yes, I might be interested. and 50 to 75% of those people coming back actually went ahead. What does, just to check on the process, so cold email, was it then a call? Was it a phone call after that, or was it just closed over email?
I didn't have time for a phone call, to be honest with you. If I would have brought on like a serious sales team, then yeah, that probably would have been the process. We followed up with a second email, a week or two later if we didn't hear back from them on the first email, and then we would close it out. I would say so we had our first client was Wake Forest University, and their cutouts were featured on college football game day, which is a big production for ESPN for college football here. So after that, then we started receiving inbound. So we kind of converted from outbound sales, I would say 2 months in, to only doing inbound. And so then that freed up, because at that point we weren't just trying to sell, we were then now trying to fulfill at the same time. So again, it was a balancing act. But yeah, and now it's our services are still open, but we're definitely inbound only, and we're seeing really just special event requests. So people who are having weddings or bar mitzvahs or different things where they then just now think it's a fun idea.
That's cool. That's really cool. And so they're just purchasing straight online.
Well, it's not exactly. They basically will come in with a query and say, this is what they're looking for. We still have to kind of build something for them. But depending on if they're having like friends and family order, or if they're just doing one bulk order.
And how much does a My Fancy cost, just for one on average?
For cost or for customer cost?
For a customer cost.
So it depends on, again, quantity that's being ordered at one time, because the biggest expense is the printing, and printing is volume based. If somebody was just buying one cutout alone, it would be $50 would kind of be the minimum. But we can get them as low as, $15 to $20 for customer cost. And again, that depends on their volume.
Got it. Okay, I've just put that in for now, just to give us a sense. So, okay, this is super cool. And then I know about your special dinner that's coming up. So is this a good time to transition to your other revenue source?
Sure. So when I started my business in 2018, I would say I'm not the kind of role model for starting a business. I would not take the playbook that I used and advise that to anyone else. My route was fairly unconventional, or maybe not, and I just think that it's unconventional. Quit my job, no business plan, no clients. I joke that all I had was a logo that I got off of Fiverr and a clipboard that my old boss made me that had my logo on it. So that was the extent of what my business looked like. I also, in that process, was moving states. So I had lived in Texas for 11 years, but I'm originally from Colorado. So I was moving back to Colorado. So uproot your life, quit your job, lose your health insurance, move states, try to sell your house, all of these things, right, happening at once. And as I was building my business, I really started to experience what, I don't know if this is, a popular thing in your world, but imposter syndrome. So imposter syndrome kind of really took over, crippling my ability to kind of put myself out there, right? And land my first client. When I moved back to Colorado, I moved back to my family's property. So I live on 12 acres of land in the middle of the city. So as I was kind of battling that imposter syndrome, trying to start a business, figuring out what that looked like financially and otherwise, I decided to start creating my own events, right? So then that would legitimize this business I had created. It would have something underneath it to actually, kind of hold it up. So started with a farm to table dinner. So we partner with local chefs. They create a menu that is obviously seasonal and locally focused. And then I come in and execute what is affectionately known in the States as a Jeffersonian dinner. So Jeffersonian dinner is based on purposeful conversation. So we take a topic or a word, and then moderators will guide guests through a conversation focused on that topic or word. The goal really is to have friends or strangers together at a table and using conversation and dialogue to uncover commonalities and allow people to really grow and develop their empathy and compassion. So again, this was like a little mental health project for myself that eventually turned into an entire arm of my business. And a lot of the focus on how we work with clients is based on this entire concept. So did 2 dinners in 2019. They were very successful. We had great feedback from customers. We got featured in several different articles in magazines in Colorado. And then again, 2020 happened, right? So we weren't able to do any dinners in 2020 or any in-person dinners. We did convert our kind of event style to virtual. So we did a lot of virtual dinners and virtual events with the purposeful conversation. But obviously from a financial standpoint, you want to have the in-person experience versus doing something virtual. So we have brought back our dinners for 2021, and we have our first one on July 10th. And I have 1 ticket left. That is it.
How many are you expecting?
So we traditionally like to be at 50. That's kind of the right number for that intimate experience. We will most likely be closer to 70 for this dinner because
crazy.
I still can't tell people no. So somebody emails me and they only see we have 1 ticket left. And I'm a sucker, and so I'm adding another table here and there, and so I think we'll end up closer to 70. But literally online, only 1 ticket left.
Wow, and it sounds like you like money too, then.
I mean, I have to pay bills, yeah.
So, and how much is 1 ticket?
1 ticket is $150.
Oh, wow.
That's kind of on the medium range for these types of events. When they're run as fundraisers, they're typically closer to $250 for a ticket price. When they're ran at a restaurant, they're probably closer to $75 or $100. So the experience includes basically a 5-course meal, and then a local beer, a local wine, and a local bourbon. So it's not a tasting menu, but you would be able to order whatever you wanted, or all 3 if you were trying to get really wild on a Saturday night. So all of that is included.
And just so I've got this right, you're expecting people 150 per person. Mm-hmm. You're expecting to turn over just for that one event over $10,000. You own the farm. Mm-hmm. So I'm guessing your only cost is the ingredients and the chef?
Food and beverage is a cost. We do have some rental costs. So I don't own 80 chairs. I don't have storage for 80 or 70 chairs. So we do have some rentals, and then we do have some decor costs. And then we have staffing cost as well. So we have servers and bartenders.
And you've nearly sold out. You've practically sold out. So how have you done that?
I have, well, I'll preface this with the topic for July 10th is sustainability, right? Okay. So really not just looking at environmental sustainability, but other aspects of, how do you sustain your mental health or your physical health, right? Through a pandemic, like what are, aspects of the general sense of sustainability. So I explain that with the fact that I have one vinyl banner that I printed in 2019 that I put up on my fence. And our property is backed up to the most popular walking and biking trail in the entire state of Colorado. Oh, so I would say we get, I don't know, on one weekend, let's say between 500 and 750 people walking by our property over a course of a weekend. So that one sign that I printed in 2019 to promote our first dinner, I went and it had the date on it from 2019. So I just went to the copy shop and printed a new date and put it on the old sign and hung it up. So it cost me $3 to update our vinyl banner that I put on the fence. And that sells 80% of our tickets.
Really? That's nuts.
I think I have one video that I kind of re-edited from our 2019 events. And I think I did like a $50 Facebook ad buy for it. And that was it.
What's the call to action on the banner? What are you asking people to do?
Visit the website.
Oh, okay. And
so
then, and then sign up.
Yeah, so the website will list the conversation description, right? So people understand they're not just coming to a sunset dinner and they're gonna, hang out with their spouse and not talk to anybody. There is an intentionality with the conversation. So we explain that. And then we list the full menu. So folks know exactly what the meal is. Our chefs are great and they do dietary restrictions or dietary changes for folks who have restrictions. So, we have several folks that are pescatarian and we have, Colorado lamb on the menu. So our chef will accommodate and adjust the menu for them. So it's, as inclusive as possible from a, dietary standpoint.
This is great. I've known you for some time now and I had no idea the detail behind all of this. So it's awesome, isn't it? I'm like finding out about you even more, but at the same time recording it so everyone else can do it at the same time. So I should just record all of my conversations with friends now. So okay, so we've got this Jeffersonian dinner, which is turning over on the next one $10,000 for that one dinner. You're driving it mainly through your banner that's sitting on a fence outside your property, on your property, so that everyone walking past
held up with zip ties.
Oh my god, that's amazing. And then, well, that's not that sustainable, is it?
What, zip ties?
Yeah.
I mean, plastic, yes. You want to try to avoid plastic, but you know what? I $3. Like, so and the best part is the zip ties I'm using for the banner are left over from my fan seat. So it is all connected.
And then you send them to a website, they sign up to find out about the next event, I'm guessing. Yeah. You'll then email them when the next event is. How do they physically pay?
Oh, so if they go to the website today, they could actually purchase the ticket. So they're not signing up for an email.
Okay.
When we don't have an event scheduled, then they would sign up for an email. Then they would receive an email when tickets went on sale for the next dinner.
How big is your email list?
It's about 1,000.
Yeah, that's super cool because they're all people that are local. They're all interested.
That's my full email list. That's probably maybe 500 local.
Okay, so why not increase the number of dinners? Why not increase the number of people? Maybe increase the price.
Yeah, all of those things are possibilities. So now what is happening, I actually had a discovery call this morning, is people are wanting to do their own dinners, right? So for their own groups or their own association or whatever the case may be. So I'm trying not, and from a financial standpoint, I have more opportunity if I'm doing a dinner for someone else. than it is if I'm producing my own dinners of these type. So I can charge a little bit more. I have a little less expense in terms of marketing. Couple other things I don't have expenses for when I'm doing it for somebody else versus myself. So the reason why I don't have a litany of dinners all summer long is, one, I have client work, right? So my schedule is also filled with other work. And two, I'm having opportunities where other groups are coming in and wanting to do their own dinner. So just not trying to fill the, calendar full of my own dinners.
Yeah. So you would I guess do something similar to My Fancy Eats, where you would maybe have a commission for the dinner they organize, or yeah, that's really interesting. Sounds like there's a ton of opportunities there.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so have we got your main three sources of how you make money? Got Smedley Events, My Fancy Eats, Farm to Table Dinner.
Yes.
Now with Smedley Events, how do you get customers today?
Again, 90% of that comes from referrals.
Okay.
I participate in all of the networking things that you can imagine. So in-person networking, online networking, different communities, like places we met, Neil and Trends. For me, networking is the core of my business because people are hiring me as a person to deliver a service versus hiring a product, right? Where they might read some online reviews or they have something tangible. So that's really my marketing for Smedley Events.
Got it. Okay, so you've got the referrals, networking, your sales strategy. I'm guessing they get in contact with you, and then it's taking that conversation from email to phone and the meetings.
Yep. Yeah. So we traditionally do like a 30-minute discovery call with all potential clients. And then we go from there. So from there, maybe depending on who's on that initial call, we might have a secondary discovery call with a larger team. And then there we draft up a proposal that then would lead into a contract.
Got it. Okay. So, I think I've summarized this well. Before I share it, can you, for those that are looking to start their own event planning business or event producing business today, and they want to start to make money, what would you recommend the one thing that they should do to get that event experience planning producer business from zero to something?
Develop their niche. So events are a very broad world, right? So there's weddings to meetings and conferences to social events. So birthday parties, quinceañeras, date nights, to sporting events, to music events. So I think in general, when people start businesses, the idea is that everybody should like this, right? Like everybody should want to work with me, or everybody should want this product. But it's really hard to develop your messaging, and then it's really hard to get your first client to commit when you're serving everyone, right? So for me, it was really important I first focused on corporate meetings, events industry, and then, couldn't give up my sports. So I kept my sports in there. And then I really started to niche down to purpose-driven, community based organizations where I could use my skill set of really fostering and developing meaningful conversation that drives some type of action to provide them a more strategic event strategy. So it wasn't just let's plan an event because it's pretty and because we want to, have a party, but let's plan an event because it has a purpose and a reason. There's still some room in my strategy that, every once in a while I'll kind of get an off the wall client that doesn't necessarily fit into one of my niches. But I think if somebody is wanting to go into events, like figure out what your event purpose is. So are you really passionate about weddings? Are you really passionate about, social events? Then focus on that and don't try to be everything to everyone.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think as well, when I first started, niching was at the top of my mind, but I would sit there looking at all these niches, doing all this analysis, paralysis. But
Mm.
one thing I would add is if you're at that stage, just get started with something, you know, and then you'll realize where you want to take it.
Mm.
It's like now actually. I've wanted to do these interviews for a very long time, and we recently moved house, and um, I don't love the background, but I just wanted to get started. I just wanted to feel what these interviews were, where I enjoy it the most, where the audience enjoys it the most. Just get started, because when you're ready to get a better background, I know the conversations and the questions where I get the most out of the guests on this show. So, you know, niching is super key, but sometimes to help you niche, it's like chicken or the egg. If you're really stuck on it, just get started. Then you'll go, I really hate that. I'm not doing that. And then over time, you just like cancel loads of boxes out, and then you find out where you end up with. That could be another way you end up niching.
Or going deeper into something that you care about, which I think is what you just explained. And again, not thinking that you have to be everything to everyone.
Yes.
That will paralyze you, because you'll start to like look at your messaging or look at your product line or your service line, and you'll be like, but wait, this doesn't include this. That's going to serve this people. Like, just start in one place, and you can adjust and pivot and make changes as you go. But yeah, not thinking that you have to be everything to everyone.
So Lara, are you ready for my Picasso?
I cannot wait.
Okay, let's do
I
this.
hope that it's yellow with white feathers.
Well, you know what? It does have yellow and it does have white.
There we go.
Can you see it?
Yeah. I see it. Okay.
Okay, cool. Okay, let me take you through this. I will one day get this designed. I'm gonna think about this. So we have Big Lara on the left hand side. Doesn't have your glasses though, unfortunately. I think we can switch this up next time. So we've got how Lara makes money today. Smedley Events. Lara does retainers with corporate organizations, non-profit associations, where her retainers could be in the small couple of thousands to 10 to 20,000. That retainer, I went head deep with, oh, it's a monthly retainer, but actually your retainer could just be based on the frequency of the events that the client chooses to have their events. So her retainers might be once a year. It could be 2 to 3 times a year, just depending on the amount of events that Lara's doing, the events for the client. Now, for Smedley Events, the way she really drives that business is by having power partner referrals, people that not only just refer you, but actually people who know how good you are because you work with them on events where they might take some of the graphic design or take other elements of the events. Those are great people to refer you because they've got real experience with you. Referrals is so important, especially in my business as well. And then networking overload, I put, where Lara will go to every event, whether it's online, in person, any opportunity to meet someone new, Lara's on it. And I think I can't wait to do that myself when things open up. And then actually taking a conversation, someone interested in Lara's services, to a sale looks like a 30-minute discovery call, going into a meeting, and then going into a sale towards actually, getting that dollar bill. Now, the next revenue source, which is actually just a short-term hit, I guess, during COVID, was My Fan Seats. Who knows where that goes? It might become just a playful thing, an experience thing for events, for weddings and other consumer-based events who want cutouts at their events. Who knows? But what Lara did is she noticed a gap in the market and she said, hey, I can see this in Asia, and let me bring this over in the US where people can just buy a cutout of a fan and then they can get it on the stands. And then she partnered up with a bunch of schools, venues, teams to see if they would come on board in exchange for most of the revenue. Who's going to say no? What's interesting is whilst consumers are marketed to by the actual venue, by the team, by the school itself, what Lara's marketing needed to focus on was how to get these schools and venues and teams on board. And it was simple. She used cold emails. She got a big list of 1,000 people, send them an awesome email that would attract and be interesting. And she had a 15 to 20% response rate, which then converted to 50 to 75% close rate. That got Lara to the first 2 months of growth, at which point she got some PR, she got some press, and then it all turned inbound. What a great business. Turning over $300,000 in revenue in 6 months. That's insane. It's almost like a pop-up business, like a test. I love businesses like that. And then it was simple: email, messaging to do the sale, and then they would get an invoice when they're ready. Now, Lara's business, the third business, how Lara makes money today, and this is the one I'm probably the most excited about, because I see there's just, as with Smedley Events, there's just a ton of opportunity. But this just sounds super cool, especially for something that we're going to be working on really soon. It's the farm to table dinner, where Lara has a farm with her family. She lives in a farm. She has this amazing 12 acres, and now she's hosting local events with a local chef, local food, a Jeffersonian dinner, which I've learned is all about interesting conversations of topics. The next one's sustainable, on the 10th of July, 3 days before my birthday. And she has 70 people expected, or 69 signed up, with one more ticket available. She's selling that $150. And so that event is going to make $10,000 for that event alone, which is insane. And Lara's only doing 1 or 2 events a year. So loads of opportunity. Lara's busy. So these things just have to be prioritized with everything else in life. What's great is the marketing is very simple. I love businesses that speak to a very specific audience, and the marketing is very simple. That business can scale when it's got that mix. So it's great. Lara has a farm. There's a fence where she put a banner which costs $3. Unfortunately, it's tied with plastic ties, so hopefully your sustainable guests don't notice that. But on a serious note, this is what's driving all of the interest, 80% of the interest for Lara's event. And then the rest, she's got some Facebook ads, I'm sure there's some connections, and people tell other people when they enjoy the dinner. So yeah, keep us updated on how that's working. They go to the website, they buy a ticket online, simple. And if there isn't an event up and running, they will sign up, and then she'll email those 500 people who have shown some interest and say, hey, why don't you check out the next dinner? I've got it available. One thing just to test, one thing that comes to mind would be actually looking at that banner, looking at the copy of that banner and potentially testing it, and just seeing if you can tweak the copy of that banner and just see what happens with the signups, because that just could be a cool story you talk about, where it's like online marketing, copywriting brought to the physical world. So Lara, have I summarized how you make money today? Wow.
This is genius. I've never laid this out so precisely before. Makes me sound super smart.
Well, it's because you're super smart. So look, Lara, thank you so much for being here. I love this story. You've got all of these businesses, which funny enough actually fit quite nicely. You know, I've spoken to entrepreneurs where it's totally random. This actually all kind of fits together quite nicely. I'm sure there's a way to really just bring it all together. Maybe you bring your corporate customers to your farm for a local Jeffersonian dinner. So you heard that idea here. But Lara, on a serious note, where can people find you?
Smedleyevents.com.
Awesome. I will add all the links to the notes below. Thank you so much for your time, and good luck with your next event.
Thanks, Neil.